Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Film Fan Club Show. I am Sam Carrico. I hope everybody had a happy, fun, and safe Halloween. I know I did. This year I wanted to dress up as something really scary for Halloween, so I went as the CGI from She-Hulk. I'm kidding, I was Count Dracula. I actually had a real good time wearing my costume on the Double Feature Movie Club podcast with Cade Thomas last weekend. Last weekend I also released part 1 of my video essay, Why I Hate My Favorite Franchise, a Star Wars story. I wanted something that would roll off the tongue really well, but it's got over 250 views now, or just about, and I mean, I've been blown away by the response. It's really heartwarming to see that so many people's childhoods were ruined in the exact same way mine was. We actually had a little bit of Star Wars news drop since our last Film Fan Club show. Did you guys see this? With Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron, as well as Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie seemingly on the back burner, I guess Disney CEO Bob Chapek actually had to tell Kathleen Kennedy to stop announcing Star Wars projects until they're set in stone. Which raises the question, why weren't you doing that to begin with? I mean, that's like going on a couple dates with a girl and then telling your friends that you have a new girlfriend. It's not that serious yet. But okay. No Star Wars announcements until further notice. Got it. Anyways, in our next story, a new Star Wars movie was announced on October 23rd. Are you serious? Okay, I guess Deadline learned exclusively that Damon Lindelof is writing a Star Wars movie with one of the directors from Ms. Marvel attached to helm the project. Damon Lindelof previously served as the showrunner on the 2019 Watchmen series, so I guess that's a good sign, right? Moving on, Watchmen comic creator Alan Moore has said that he's disowned the 2019 series and told the showrunner not to contact him. Wait, are these stories a joke? You can take Alan's word with a grain of salt though, because he also said that comics are for 12-year-olds and can serve as a, quote, precursor to fascism. And I'm not really buying that. I mean, the only way that you could read something like V for Vendetta and come away from it thinking that fascism is cool is if you literally are 12 years old. Which is, I guess, what Alan wants? Disney is working on a live-action Hercules movie, and co-director Joe Russo told Variety that it will be made for audiences, quote, inspired by TikTok. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but if it does mean that the movie will have half-naked 20-something girls dancing in it, I might check it out. No, but seriously though, I'm not really a big fan of short-form video content. I mean, talking about going the distance, kids these days can't even go 15 seconds before they scroll to the next video on their phone. Get off my lawn. Finally, a new Christmas movie was shot here in northeastern Oklahoma last month. A Christmas Present stars Candace Cameron and was filmed in downtown Claremore, Oklahoma during the first half of October. Set photos show production crew, trucks, and most importantly, fake snow. Onlookers were a little disappointed though, because when they heard you could find snow in Claremore, they had something else in mind. Okay, we've got a great show for you lined up. Later on, we're going to be talking about the impact of streaming services, but first, we're going to discuss House of the Dragon and Rings of Power. Let's get right to it. I always like to give a quick reminder that if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to use the time codes to jump to whatever section of the video you want to check out first. If you're listening to this as an audio-only podcast, you can find the time codes in the show notes. You can just refer to the show notes and go to scrub to wherever you want to listen first. And then if you want to check these discussions out live, follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/thefilmfanclub. I think I got all that right. I want to bring in my guests today. First up, we got Alex McKellar, and also John Lein is back. Hey, guys.
Hello.
So we got House of the Dragon and Rings of Power just both wrapped up their first seasons. I have seen them both. I may have liked one more than the other. So I figured we'd talk about them both and kind of compare and contrast our opinions and see how they both stack up, because I didn't want to do a full season, episode by episode review of both those shows, and I was very busy with the Star Wars video. So you guys, is there anything you'd like to say going into? Let's talk about House of the Dragon first. You can, of course, compare it to Rings of Power as much as you want, because I'm going to. But what did you guys think, Alex, going into House of the Dragon?
Of the two shows when they were coming out, like, I was hesitant on both, but I'd say I was the least interested in House of the Dragon, mostly because, like, Game of Thrones just ended so poorly. And, like, having been a big fan of, like, the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings films, even though I was nervous about, like, Amazon taking it over, not sure what they're going to do, I was like, there's just that curiosity, whether it's, like, the Call of the Void, you want to watch, like, a train wreck happen, or you, like, hope it's good. Like, that was the one I was more interested in. The first few episodes won me over though with House of Dragon. Like, I was like, oh, cool. This feels kind of similar to like what was good about Game of Thrones. It doesn't feel like it's being made by people who are tired of making it, which was nice.
John, what did you think going in?
I wasn't really gonna watch either of them. I find that I don't really get hyped for TV shows very much anymore, especially big budget ones that are like, flagships of various streaming services. I kind of like go into them assuming that the worst is going to be the result. But I liked both of them. They're both much better than I was expecting. They both have really good, cinematography in very different ways. They both have, I like the writing of it. I have kind of questions, I guess, about both of them. But overall, I like them both, and I'll definitely watch the next seasons of both of them.
Nice.
In the years from now when they come out or whatever.
Yeah, it's gonna be several years. I similarly, I did not like the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones. I don't think a season of Game of Thrones after season 4 was really that good. I think 5 and 6 had their moments, but especially by the time you got to 7 and 8, there was like very hard. It was very hard to find redeemable qualities about them. So I was not. I was like, I was cautiously optimistic, I guess, going in because I liked the trailers. I liked the idea of getting back to the politics of Game of Thrones and who's going to control the Iron Throne. And there's just that little thing that's like, oh, we all know where this is going, and that's not fun. But but then I think right after the first episode, or maybe definitely by episode 2. But yeah, really, if not by episode 1, I really loved House of the Dragon. I thought it was amazing. So what I have here is a bunch of. I'm going to throw up spoiler banner so we can talk about spoilers. So there's the Rhaenyra Targaryen. She's the first character that I got here. Did you guys like Alex? Did you like Millie Alcock or Emma Darcy's performance better? Millie Alcock is the younger, and Emma Darcy is the older. Emma Darcy uses they them pronouns.
Oh, okay. I enjoyed both of their performances. I mean, it was definitely a little weird once the time jump happened because, I was used to seeing the first person whose name I forgot already. Sorry. I casually watched the show. Millie Alcock. Yeah, she was great. I think like all of the actors in the show were like solid all the way through. Like there was definitely with that time jump, it was weird to kind of get used to. It's like, oh, okay, this is this person now. This is this person now. They've aged up. Life's been hard to them in different ways. They're not children anymore. And I thought that was good. Like I would have enjoyed, I guess, the idea of like all of these kids, not doing these massive time skips and potentially watching them go through life more. But I think it helped like separate like, okay, this was our like childhood years where we're still kind of naive about the world into like the bitter, cold years of like, no, everyone sucks. Everything's about power. None of us are really friends. To then you get that twinge of hope later in the season where it's like, okay, maybe we can be friends again. Maybe our childhood, like naivete, like there was something real about that, but then it's their own kids that like, now they're in that like angsty fight with each other phase that leads to the ultimate, like what's going to be, probably a hella violent next few seasons. So I was like, I think it was good. I think it was effective, but I would have to watch it again to be like, oh, this person I feel like nailed the character better because they really were playing different people. Like a lot changed from when they were kids to when they were adults, and being able to see that reflected in them looking different, I think helped the show more than anything else.
Well, you're hitting on something that and we'll get to you. I just got to say this right before I throw to you, John, or else I'll forget. I liked Millie Alcock a lot better than Emma Darcy. Emma Darcy grew on me, though. I really liked their portrayal as it went on. I couldn't see Millie Alcock as a mother. Emma Darcy does a good job as that mama bear kind of role. I think the time skips hurt the show quite a bit. I would have liked to have seen the first season be 2 seasons, one with Millie Alcock, one with Emma Darcy, so that way you could get more of these characters. John, did the time skips bother you that much? And Rhaenyra is the character we're talking about.
As far as the time skips, I thought they actually worked really well leading into the big one, because they do time skips between each episode. I think the first and second episode has like a 6-month time skip.
Yeah.
And then the second and third episode has an even bigger one.
Yeah.
And the books, as far as I've been told, because I haven't read them, are written more like a history book, right?
Right.
So I feel like it works to do this, like, here's a key important moment in the lives of these important figures to give you context, and then time jump to the next key important moment, and then time jump to the next one, without having to necessarily spend a whole bunch of time filling in space that maybe doesn't necessarily need to be there in our journey to the Civil War that's going to be season 2. That is, like, you know, the goal of the show. And I kind of liked how they did it. And I thought that both of the talent portraying Rhaenyra, their names, I'm never going to get any of them right this whole podcast.
Putting the notes together was a challenge for both of those shows.
But I liked both of their performances a lot. You know, Alex mentioned that they kind of were portraying different characters, which is true. But I also felt like they kind of flowed really well into each other. You know, they do the big time jump, and Rhaenyra's there with a different person playing them. But there you can see a lot of the same character elements in the new person playing them that is carried over. Like, I think they did a really good job of flowing together well. So I like them both.
I think it worked a little bit better for Millie and Emma there, because I think they might have talked a little bit more than Alicent's actresses, Emily Carey and Olivia Cook, of course, who I know from Bates Motel, good show. Did you think that there was a little bit more disconnect between the actresses?
I would agree that Rhaenyra's, the two characters, they seemed, like they either communicated better, worked together on potential mannerisms, or, like, you know, had a shared idea of the backstory of the character and the inner world. Whereas, the Alicent characters, although she also goes, like, Rhaenyra's, you know, she starts as, like, defiant, and she continues to stay defiant, whereas, like, Alicent is, like, so much controlled by the hand of the king, by her dad, you know, and, like, is, like, it's a very slow process for her to get to the same realization that, like, Rhaenyra gets to, of, like, the bleakness of the world and the quest for power and all that stuff. So, like, maybe it was that, like, the disconnect is, like, that age gap. I don't know, because they do go on different arcs in a way. But I mean, if I had to just, like, say one pair was better, it would probably be Rhaenyra's.
I really like Olivia Cook's portrayal of adult Alicent. I think she does. I like what you're talking about as well. I noticed that too. The just how much this woman is just controlled by everything around, the patriarchy. You could even say a lot of, or the system is what I have actually written down. The system, with system in all caps. Yeah, it's about the system and how these poor women are being put in these positions because they don't dislike each other. They, at the beginning, you know, with their little page or whatever that Alicent, Olivia Cook's character, keeps and sends to Rhaenyra. I've heard that Emily Carey is a member of the LGBT community, so she played Alicent specifically with that in mind. Like, perhaps Alicent was in love with Rhaenyra, and then other people have pointed out that Olivia Cook doesn't really maintain that type of portrayal. So that's where some people think the disconnect is. But I also like how, at first, I'm not sure how. I guess at first I didn't like it as much, but I think it's growing on me, the religious aspect of Alicent's character. Not that I think it's a bad idea. I just didn't know if they stuck the landing on it, because of all these fucking time jumps, you just show up here one episode and then suddenly there's just religious imagery everywhere, and you didn't really get to see a progression.
Right.
John, did that? How did you feel about that aspect of her character?
You know, I think it happens kind of suddenly, but I also think that it happened suddenly because until she became what is the term that they use? Queen consort. Until she became queen consort and Viserys was kind of out of the picture, is in charge as far as, like, making any decisions.
Yeah.
That's like that event. That change in power dynamic happens while we're away from King's Landing. And then we come back to King's Landing, and that power dynamic has shifted. And now all of a sudden there's all the Sept of the Seven religious iconography, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that is like what we're talking about. And I think that I also watched the Inside the episode after most of the episodes because it's that damn good. And they talk about how they wanted it to feel like the Targaryens, that Rhaenyra and Daemon as they went away, and then they came back, and now it's like an unrecognizable like place, and they wanted them to feel like out of place there. So I guess that's what they were trying to do, but it takes away from what could have been part of Alicent's arc.
And I also think it's interesting. My hope for the show in overall, right, is that they kind of show us a little bit more about like the way that all of this is affecting the people of Westeros. Mm-hmm. Like, I like all the personal character drama between all of these nobles and stuff like that, but like they've kind of sort of mentioned a couple times, like, they crown what's his face, Aegon, in front of all the people so that the people will have it in their heads that he's the king. They do like the little story arc with Daemon's consort who becomes the worm.
The White Widow or whatever.
Massaria, the
scary
White
lady.
Worm. Yeah,
She's got that. She's got that like little line where she's like, "Remember when you're in power that you're only there because we allow you to be there." There's like hints that maybe there's some sort of context there that we'll get as things get worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I would really like to see that because I am a little bit tired of shows about, nobility being shitheads and everybody just kind of being like, well, that's the way the world exists. Rich people do fucked up shit and they get away with it. I don't know. I kind of want something else.
Yeah.
I get that. Alex, do you find that to be an issue that there's no quote unquote good guy?
I don't think that's a problem with this show. Like, I think it's very intentionally sort of about, like, I guess, the main villain would be this, like you were talking about, the structure, this roles that are like put on these people who, they may not want them, but then to keep the society going, they have to do this. And, because of this story that this guy's telling, that means we're going to have to kill these children, when it's like, you probably could figure out a solution. It's like a show where, it's like that classic problem where it's like the people, like, they're miscommunicating, they don't understand each other, and so it does get frustrating that they can't, but it's because of like all of the social inertia that's placed upon sorry, I almost did that whole bit with a straight face, but your giggle, Sam, got me. but yeah, like, but like they're not being like a true like good hero. I don't think that's a problem with this show, because this world doesn't allow for that. I'm still a sucker for media where there is like a good hero, like I like, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies, where even though Peter's Stark, I'm like, yeah, I could believe in him. I'm not watching House of the Dragon or even Game of Thrones looking at any character like, that's who I want to be, because that's not the point of the show.
Yeah, the joke that people have made is pick your favorite war criminal, and that's a funny joke that I didn't come up with. But I don't have a problem with it. A lot of people are like, oh, Rhaenyra has done bad things too. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's not a good world that they live in.
Yeah, there's dragons and murders and shit, and this whole structure built by these people who are like, oh, we can't ever be nice because that'll be seen as weak, and then the people won't respect us. But they don't respect us anyway because we abuse them all the time. But we got to keep abusing them so they'll respect us, and we can't be nice. And you're like, no, you probably could do things differently, but that's not this show. This show is about, dragons and blood and shit.
Okay, so Daemon Targaryen, and before we go to King Viserys, let's talk about Daemon. I think he's such a fun character. He's a horrible person. Get that out of the way. Wouldn't want to be in. But in a fictional show where nobody gets hurt, a lot of fun to watch. Matt Smith, I enjoy from playing the 11th Doctor. I did not expect this type of performance from him. I thought, I guess I didn't know what to expect. I just knew he was quirky and can be fun and whimsical as the Doctor. But seeing a dark turn for him was really fun. John, what did you think of Matt Smith as Daemon Targaryen?
I mean, I really like Daemon as a character, especially after the big timeline, like the big time jump. So he's impulsive and, he wants his own authority and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, my choices are the best choices and all that kind of shit. But then he does the time jump. We do the big time jump, and he's kind of been off on his own with his wife and children, and he's realized how kind of pointless the whole game is, and he like becomes more detached and more thoughtful about things, and I really enjoyed that. And then it was interesting to see when it was like, okay, now his kids are in danger because of, you know, all of the stuff that's happening at King's Landing, and so now he's got like the next war going, and he's kind of going back to the person he was before the time jump, where he's just like, no, now it's time to fuck shit up. I find that really interesting. I find the performance really good. He is despicable though.
He killed his wife because she called him out on the fact that he can't get it up. Like, that was such a complex character. I love that Allison is so complex. And I like that Damon is also complex because he's partially a villain because he can't get it up. Complexity.
Complexity.
And it, I don't know.
All villains are villains because of erectile dysfunction.
Well, yeah, Allison's got the whole religious, you know, and suppression and the patriarchy, and he's like, God damn it, my dick doesn't work, and that's fine.
He can get it up for his niece, though.
Well, do you think that's what? Unless you think that's what happened, or do you think that's what the problem was in the brothel scene? Do you think he?
Oh yeah, because the consort is like, I can get someone in here with blonde hair. And he's kind of like, no, because she knows that what he wants is to fuck a relative.
Yeah.
The whole show, all the Targaryens just want to fuck other Targaryens.
Now, even Viserys, I think in the first episode, Viserys is married to his like first cousin or something like that, and then she dies in childbirth, or she dies in childbirth. I really like the parallels between the childbirth at the beginning and end of the season. Those are both really good. So I like Damon a lot. I think I have notes on the season finale specifically, so we'll get more into it then. I like that you think that he's like completely become, you know, dad, you know, and helping Rhaenyra, but then whenever it's time to get back into war, baby, he's like, ooh, I don't give a shit that you're giving birth right now.
Ooh.
And there's definitely like a theme throughout the whole show of the men, even the decent ones. Like, as soon as shit gets a little bit like frustrating or hairy, they're like, "Oh, I'm going off to war again. Gonna go to the Stepstones to have an adventure."
It's time to do murdering. So I can work through my trauma by giving other people trauma who will try to work through it by attacking me again. It's like these systems of violence. They just perpetuate each other. It's weird.
It's like poetry. They run
resentment and shitty parents.
Okay, so King Viserys is probably my favorite character, actually. Now that I think about it, because he has the best scene in the whole show. I think Viserys is he a bad king, or just a misguided person? Like, is he? Because a lot of people ascribe a lot of blame to Viserys, and I think he was trying his best, and I like that about him. I think he also is just kind of like, well, this is the way things are in this universe, so I'm gonna, you know, perpetuate this system. As bad as that is, I think he's misguided, but I think he's genuinely trying to do the right thing, down to the scene where he's like, oh, let's all have dinner together, and I'm fucking, my eyeballs falling out, but I still, you know, just want to see my family all be happy together. And I thought that was heartwarming. But my favorite scene in the whole show is the scene where he walks to the throne. And could you imagine that being like a highlight of a show? He walks to a throne, but my gosh, it's done with such it's shot in a way that's really beautiful, and the music is good, and the acting, Patty Considine did a great job with the whole performance. You really get that sense of how he's decaying over time. But my favorite part of the walking scene, the best scene of the whole show, is whenever he's like, oh, I don't need your help, and then he drops his crown, and then he's like, and then somebody picks it up for him, and he's like, I didn't need your, and he realizes it's Daemon. I'm like, oh, that part made me like go, oh, like audibly, really like, wow, cute shit. Yeah. That was good shit. I loved it a lot. Alex, what did you think of the series?
Like, now you bring it up, I like, especially, you know, hearing like being misguided and stuff. It's like, I'm starting to think like maybe he was like the quote unquote good guy, like the peaceful king, because like he stuck to his decision about Rhaenyra, and also we saw that the gods also picked her because she saw the white stag when they were hunting. So she, you know, like, you know, metaphorically and by the king was supposed to be the one. And so it's like, really now I'm just hating Alicent's dad even more, because he's the one that caused all of these problems by being like, yo, King, you should fuck my daughter, which like gross, and also like he did it for power, and he's kept like meddling and all this stuff. So, if old Viserys had just let that guy die or something, like kept him out of there and not married Alicent and all this stuff, maybe we wouldn't have had such a hard time with the White Walkers, and D&D would have enjoyed the show they were making and not canceled it early. So really, I blame all of it on Alicent's dad.
What a great character as well. What a great character. I forgot there was a whole period where Otto Hightower wasn't the Hand of the King, and then they just let him back in there for some reason. That fucking idiot.
Well, they're like, yeah, he's been gone long enough, and he's gotten over his original like thing that would have clouded his judgment of his daughter being in line to power his grandchildren. That's not going to do anything anymore.
John, what did you think of Viserys?
Viserys is such an interesting and complicated character, I think. He may be one of my favorite in the show, even though he's kind of ineffectual at everything he tries to do, because he does a lot of half measures and a lot of like, oh, well, let's not do that thing because it would cause conflict. Like, he's conflict avoidant, which is good if you want to avoid conflict in the short term, but not good if you're trying to like keep an entire kingdom of competing loyalties and like objectives from tearing itself apart. Like his conflict avoidance allows all of the conflicts that already exist, whether he's open about them or not, to fester until he's dead. And all of a sudden there's this huge problem. And I really, really enjoyed the way that his body changed over the course of the season.
Yeah.
We see him at the beginning and he's healthy, but even then at the beginning, he has that like cyst on his back that they can't seal, because sitting on the Iron Throne has literally cut him and infected him with some like crazy skin-eating problem.
Leprosy or something.
His like hand he cuts his finger on the throne in the second episode, and then over the course of the show, more and more of it just turns black.
And he loses it entirely. By the end there.
It's such an interesting metaphorical and literal like depiction of how the pressures of his position and his not really preparedness for the role is festering rot. And he's also kind of gross, but he's also like good in that like his we're all family. I don't care that my daughter's kids are probably from some other guy. Like, it's obvious that they're not the children of both of them, right?
They're just happy, healthy, strong boys.
It's fine because it is like, maybe get some new blood into your bloodline. That'll be useful later when you marry them off to their cousins. But also, like, he just likes his family. He doesn't want them to hurt each other. And so even though it's definitely going to happen when he dies, he just doesn't want it to happen and doesn't want to deal with it.
Let's just move past it. Just
and it almost works.
Up. Yeah.
It's that's another thing I really like about the show is that like when a couple like Viserys does it a couple times, Alicent does it once. There's a few moments where characters are like, look, I'm sorry about how fucked up our relationships are. Could we maybe get back to it? And then some shit happens completely out of their control and they knee-jerk react to it, and it sends everything spiraling back into shit. And it's interesting. I don't know. I like it a lot. And Viserys is the key to that.
Last thing, I before we move on from Viserys, I remembered what I was going to say. I love that he forgives Daemon every single episode. That is the funniest thing to me. Like at the end of every episode, Daemon gets kicked out, and then the next episode, he's always like, oh, "Okay, that's fine. Oh, come on."
Yeah.
Oh, it's good shit. So, and then also is there anything that hasn't been said about Otto Hightower that you guys would like to say? I just think he's a fun Tywin type of character. This is really what the last few seasons of Game of Thrones were missing, was Tywin type.
He's a super compelling character. I always enjoyed, like, the actor. He was great, but every time I'm watching, I'm like, man, fuck you. You're the one that's causing all this thing to go sideways. Like, you are so you're so, like, you're forcing the structure to, like, be what it is. Like, you are not letting anyone, like, have any free will and, like, trying to just forgive and forget. You're like, no, if you're not the worst if you're not the worst version of yourself, something bad might happen, maybe, so be a bastard, be more evil. But he says it in his quiet, like, oh, I'm being rational voice. And I'm just like, fuck you, dude. I hate you so much. But, like, great, like, a fantastic character.
I hope we see him put Aegon in his place next season. I want a the king is tired type of scene, like with Tywin and Joffrey. But go ahead, John.
There's that scene that Otto has with Alicent at the gates right after he gets sent away for the, I guess, first time, only time. But he gets sent away and he has a conversation with Alicent where she's like, why didn't you, like, talk to me about any of this shit? And he just unloads on her. He's like, look, this is how the world is, lady. I put you in this position, but now you've got kids with the king, and then the king is going to die, and the person who's in line is going to have to kill your kids, which means you're going to have to choose one or the other. It's just such a good, like, little monologue.
Yeah.
And then she instills that onto Aegon, and then that's what's so sad too, is the kids probably don't give a shit about fighting each other for the most part. Except Aemon's bastard. Well, he doesn't really want to kill anybody.
Yeah, you see like the second generation of kids, like the trauma that carries over later, where they're fighting each other, it's just like straight up just childhood bullying, because they're wealthy kids that all feel out of place no matter who they are in this thing. Like the kids that are bastards, the strong kids, they suspect, they kind of know, especially the older one. And the other two, they're in line to potentially be royalty. It's like they're like, what fucks everything up is just that they were all mean to each other and their parents weren't good about like being like, no, y'all are really on the same team, like, yeah. So I thought it was well handled, because like they're all picking on the one kid who loses an eye. And then he goes and he takes the big dragon and then starts a fight and gets his eye cut out. It's like, bro, you started this, you little shit. I
got a dragon now. That means I can fight hand to hand in this cave against 5 other kids.
Actually, I just remembered, as you were talking, like, about that structure and all that stuff, I like that we have the dragons and that they make such an effort to talk about how they're not really trained. Like, even their riders don't have complete control over them.
I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah, so it's like we're humans and we think we're in charge, we think we're in control, but the system has a lot of force pushing against us, and it's like all that stuff. And then for the end to be 2 dragons, like, no longer obeying the commands of their riders, that's going to lead to this civil war, just because one of them had been bullied years ago, and so how he's going to pick on the weaker one, because that's what bullies do, like just childish nonsense. And then that is now going to lead to a horrific and bloody civil war, which will then lead to a few seasons of a good show and then a bunch of seasons that are bad. So, like, there's not a lot of hope in the Game of Thrones universe, I'm realizing.
I hope that this show is. I'm just thinking about how complex all these characters. Even Aemond, a character like Aemond, is pretty complex. Mm-hmm. More so as we start to segue into our second topic a little bit. More so, these characters are so complex, more so than any of the characters in the other show that I didn't like. So that's what I love about the show, is that the characters, they're not great people, but there's a lot to them. Got to talk about Kristen Cole as well. Kristen Cole is he has a line in the second to last episode where he says every woman is an image of the mother to be revered, but clearly he's just like an incel, right? He's like a nice guy that like didn't get called back. What do you guys make of Kristen Cole?
He's such a little shitbag.
Yeah.
It was interesting to me, he starts out right, and they have that little forbidden love, and they care about each other, and blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as she's like, look, bro, maybe I don't think I can run away to a different continent with no money or power and leave the kingdom without an heir. Let's just keep fucking each other in secret, and you can be my guard. And he gets so pissy that he just turns into this monster. Every action he makes is just him being a vile little shit.
Yeah.
It's so funny to take that trope that seems like he's going to be like, in a
Nice.
stereotypical archetype, he'd be the hero, right? He'd be the one that we all want her to get with because
that's a great point.
He's nice and supportive, and he's not a rich
the knight in shining armor.
Dick. Exactly. Yeah. And then as soon as he doesn't get what he wants, he just becomes the worst character in the whole show.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, and I hate him so much.
I think he's a fun character, but he's fun to hate. It's going to be sad when he inevitably dies, but think about how graphic and gratifying they're probably going to make his death. Probably it's going to be amazing. Leonor Valerian is he was the closeted gay lover of Rhaenyra, I believe. There's not a lot I could say about him. He died. He didn't die. That's a change from the books, I guess. So, you guys have any thoughts on Leonor? Oh, while I'm at it, Leonor and Harwin. I wish we could have seen more of Harwin. His appearance was kind of a joke because he's in one episode, then he's gone.
Who's Harwin?
Harwin Strong was in one episode. He is the actual father of.
And then he gets set on fire.
Yeah. He gets killed by the cripple dude who's
his brother?
in defeat.
Yeah. Laris.
Yeah.
That dude is scary to me.
Yeah. Real piece of work. Real bastard. Leonor was the Valerian husband, right? For a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like that they that was one of those moments where it's like, see, you can find a workaround without having to resort to just brutality. Which I mean, they killed someone and set them on fire. That was never named. So that is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But they also saved this guy's life and allowed him to go live how he wanted to live, get out of this system of betrayal and violence and all of this stuff, so that he could have the fulfilling life that he wanted. You know what I mean? It showed times where people would work around the system in ways to where it's we can escape this game that we're playing, but then, Do
you think he's actually out? My assumption is that they sent him off to the other continent to make money or gain support in secret to come back when shit was important, when everybody was important.
No, in the book he died, so I think I think they're just gonna say no. Actually, he didn't die. He lived happily ever after.
I mean, I could see that could, something like that could happen, but I didn't get that vibe. I got way more of the vibe of Rhaenyra was I'm gonna consolidate power. I'm gonna shore up my position, and that means I can't be married to you anymore, but you're not a bad person, so we're not just gonna murder you. Do you want to go off with some money and your boyfriend and live however you want to fucking live out there, escape this bullshit? And he was yeah, that sounds great. I'll do that.
That little twist also got me, because Daemon is you can't be married to Leonor anymore. And I was they're gonna fucking kill Leonor. And then they go through all the beats of plotting his death, and then he's getting on the boat, and I was oh, nice.
It's nice to have a little bit of positive subversion. Obviously there's a lot about Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon that's fantasy, but darker, and it's nice that they can
hot fantasy that sucks.
Yeah.
So in the books, is he killed by Rhaenyra?
I think it's before, as if the twist didn't happen. Just
yeah. So one of my friends who's read the books has suggested to me that it seems like they're kind of playing down how fucked up the blacks are, specifically so that they are a little bit more relatable to the audience members.
That's possible. I think that's possible. I think I like it better when they're all bad guys. But
have either of you read the books?
Me reading?
Nah, dude.
Okay. I was just curious if we had any actual information on how.
Let me know when George R. R. Martin finishes one of his stories completely, and then I might pick up one of the series. All right.
The only thing I do want to say is I loved the Baratheon throne room. It just looked the most boring shithole ever to spend time in. Yeah. The guy can't read. He's super dismissive. He's just such a shithole.
That one stroke of bro, you're not fighting in my house. Get the this guy courted me, but no, I'm on your side because you're gonna pay me more. But also, don't start this shit in my house. You take it outside with your dragons and do something stupid.
Yeah, I guess that's where we could leave it off with the ending. Did you guys like that ending? I like the ending. I like again. We already talked about it. I like that they can't control the dragons. I think it's also a change from the book. I think in the book, Aemon just killed him, and I think it's like, oh fuck, these are kids with a nuclear bomb. So it actually kind of adds that weight to the show. So I like it. I like House of the Dragon. I would give it 5 bags of popcorn and 2 muzzles, dragon-sized muzzles.
Nice.
So that way they can't do that.
Very different sizes, but still.
Okay, so switching it over to Rings of Power. So these names were really hard. Originally, there was a lot of like not Sauron and not Gandalf, and I have one character I still have written down as MILF because I don't know her name. And her kid.
Bronwyn? The human herbalist?
The what?
That Arendir likes?
Yeah.
Southland. Bronwyn. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say MILF because I don't know that name. But let's start with.
You learned even the actors and actresses' names for fucking House of Dragon, a show that's like, yeah, humanity sucks, you can't escape it, and if you try to play with the forces of nature, they're gonna fucking kill you. And this show's over here like, hey, maybe you should be friends sometimes. He's like, yeah, whoever they are, fucking MILF, and little person, and fucking not Gandalf, and whoever halfbag or whatever his name is.
God, I hated that twist at the end. So, should I just jump into it right now?
Hang on, wait. Dude. I think the fact that you don't know the Lord of the Rings characters' names is funny because I don't know the House of Dragons characters' names because they're all basically the same. They're all just like Daenerys, Lenoris, Ramoris, Viserys, Vareus.
Isildur and Arendir? What the fuck? I don't
know. They're like directly. Arendir is not the same as Isildur. Bronwyn is completely different.
They are from, but like they just suck. I don't like them. Okay,
fair enough. Whatever.
Woo! Okay, so I was super excited. This whole time I had been like, "This guy is Gandalf," because John told me in our podcast, bonus podcast that we did in September. Go listen to it right now. I was like, "This guy's Gandalf. It's Gandalf. Gandalf, clearly Gandalf." Okay. Get into the episode, they call him Sauron. I was like, holy shit! That's not what I thought. I thought he's the other guy. I thought that Halbrand was Sauron. That's a cool twist. Oh my fucking god! No, it's exactly like I thought. That sucked. I hated that, guys. What did you think? The ending?
So you didn't like that you were correct?
It was predictable. Oh, I see what you're doing now. I see what you're doing now. Yeah. I should have had my expectations subverted, and I would have liked it in this case, if that's the joke you're going for. But
I mean, it was that, or you should have loved it when whatever her name was killed the Ice King with the dagger, because like no one saw that coming. That wasn't predictable because it was fucking stupid.
Okay. Well, hang on. Are you saying it would have been stupid if Gandalf was Sauron and not the other way around?
Yes, that would have been stupid.
That would have been stupid. That would have been what D&D would have done. They would have been like, "Ooh, we Westworlded your asses. We saw your comments online and we rewrote our show so that we were smarter than the audience."
I would have loved it. It would have been a red herring.
But it would have been. These are words that I know related to media.
They would have been following the hero's journey, if I'm remembering correctly.
It would have been a Campbellian twist, a subversion. Yeah,
check off
monomyth.
Okay. You guys you didn't like you liked it. You liked knowing exactly what was going to happen.
Well, I thought exactly what was going to happen. Yeah, I thought Halbrand was the Witch King of Agmar, which I still I sometimes prefer, but the reveal,
I would prefer that for sure.
It still slaps. It was like the whole time I was watching it again to refresh, and I was like, bro, fucking Halbrand is committed to the bit. If he's Sauron the whole time, like he is method acting his ass off. Like he's just like, yeah, Adar, and it was tired of me torturing his children, so he killed me. But he can't kill me because I'm a mortal being transcending time and space. So I'm just gonna get on a boat and sail away. Oh shit, I ran into an elf, but I still want to get the fuck out of here. I'm over it. Oh, here's a forge. That's kind of exciting. Maybe I can craft something. Sorry. Let's talk about the show.
I didn't like it.
Okay.
What I noticed, so I started rewatching it because it had been a while since I'd watched it, but I didn't finish it. But so this may not be, I don't know how this plays out over the course of the whole season, but I noticed in the first few episodes, Halbrand and Galadriel.
Galadriel.
Yeah, I've just been calling her Gal.
I was like, not Galadriel, not the most famous person.
I love that.
I've just
Yeah,
gotten stuck in my head that I'm just.
Yeah, John's like, I like all the names in Rings of Power, but the one character who's been in every iteration of the franchise, Galadriel, her name's Gal something, Lady Elf.
I've just been referring to her as Gal in like all text messages about the show.
God, that's so funny.
But Gal and Halbrand are basically the exact same character in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like they both, we see Gal go through the whole like her obsession with hunting down Sauron and getting mutinied by her team because she's pushing them too far, and then she gets exiled, though not really exiled, but it is an exile.
She gets the honorary exile.
Mm-hmm. And then she refuses to leave and comes back, and Halbrand is basically the same thing, but all of it's implied. Like he pushed all the orcs to the north because he wanted to do crazy magic experiments to shift the world or whatever. The orcs and Adar mutinied against him. He got exiled. He ended up out in the ocean just like Galadriel, and then came back and was like, okay, I'm coming back now. Because neither of them can get over their own crazy like obsessions.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I really enjoyed in this was like, although I'm needing to unpack it more because there's like a lot of stuff going on, but the fact that like Gil-galad was like almost right that like if Galadriel didn't leave, she was going to reignite the flame that was the evil. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And then like Durin wanting to like mine from Mithril and his dad being like stuck in his ways and like, fuck the elves, let him die. Like that's also going to go poorly for everyone. So it's like a weird thing. That's like, they're trying to save the world, but ultimately like they're dooming it by trying to save it, which, again, it's like interesting, but I'm going back and forth on how I feel about it. I need to watch it again and like really with this in mind. But yeah, no, I mean, I liked both shows, but like for me, and I think this might just be a personal thing, I like this one more because of like Elrond and Durin's friendship, because of the Harfoots, because like there was like optimism. People were nice to each other and like helping each other was how things progressed. Whereas like Game of Thrones told me I was an idiot for like wanting to have friends and like help other people.
Man, I hated that Harfoot storyline so much. There was like, anytime we cut back to, I'm like, what's going to happen? Nothing. They're going to travel and then they're going to abandon their friends after they fall behind. They basically steal the pirate code from Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. If you fall behind, you're left behind. And we watched that movie and we're like, wow, pirates are scoundrels. That's really neat.
You don't think it's compelling that the Harfoot social tenet is no one goes off trail, no one walks alone. But they use that tenet of solidarity and unity as a means of convincing everybody to just like not help the injured Harfoots and leave them behind. Yeah, like I found all of that societal shit really compelling.
Yeah, like they have this ancient wisdom that like actually kept them alive. Like the solidarity, the one thing that Largo Brandyfoot like says in his big moment in the penultimate episode, where like their things have been put on fire by like the weird evil ladies from Rune or whatever, and he's like, we don't slay dragons, we're not much for mining jewels, but there's one thing that we're better at than anybody else, and that's we stay true to each other. And we stick together. We just keep walking with hearts bigger than our feet. Like he reminds them of what actually makes them survive. It's that nobody walks alone. That's like the important part. The trails change, the path changes. They need trail finders. So it's like you don't go off trail because leaving the group will lead to demise. It's about solidarity. And nobody walks alone. It's like we take care of each other even in the hard times. But when we first meet them, it's just like this ancient thing that they say. They don't have like that context in it because life has become a little bit simpler. And yeah, if there's a mudslide, but it is potentially dangerous to go back and rescue a cart and all of that stuff. So it's become this thing. But then they realize when they've hit this new tragedy, they know like really what keeps them alive is their love and commitment to each other and always helping each other out. And yeah, like even Melva says, like, if you're not living good, what's the good in living? So, like I thought that was good. Like we got to see the hope come back into the world. We jump in where it's kind of dark, things are kind of mid, but we see, you know, through like Elrond and Durin's friendship, we see that like there is hope. We can like transcend this evil, even though again we know that it's going to go real bad, and then Frodo's going to show up and save the day with Sam. And you know, we get a similar vibe with the Harfoots and old Gandalf.
And then she leaves. She goes off alone or not alone. She doesn't want. Actually, never mind. She leaves the group though. You know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big.
She goes
moment
on her
character.
on her journey, and we'll tune in season 2, see what happens in 2025 or whatever.
Say it was an unexpected journey.
You could.
It's the name of the movie. We talked about Galadriel. We talked about Halbrand and Sauron.
Totally normal Middle Earth dude, Halbrand. Definitely not Sauron.
Is Sauron pretty in before he dies in the books? Is he like?
Yeah, he's supposed to be a pretty fair creature, like a trickster. Yeah, like a lower. Like again, I guess we looked at it. He's like on the same magic level as like a Gandalf, but you know, like he's like very. I feel like I could be misremembering, but he's described as like very fair and like silver tongued. Like he was, because like the little bit I know is like the way the show does it is probably different than what is written, but he like tricks Celebrimbor and the elves into helping craft all of these rings that he's then going to make a ring that can control the rest of them. You know, in the show, it's kind of like a quick little thing, but I could be wrong, so Tolkien nerds sound off in the comments. But yeah, I'm relatively sure that he like is more involved in the forging of all of the rings, and it's like he's pulling this big trick on the elves, like feeding their hubris and their fear of death, because they've never really had to deal with it. And now the magic's leaving.
I mean, technically, we still don't know if he is pulling strings behind the scenes the whole time anyway. Like, one of my worries for the show is that season 2, 3, 4, 5, however many they're going to have, slowly reveal that actually Sauron's been manipulating everybody the whole time via magic or whatever. And this was all his plan beat by beat from the beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would... I mean, it depends on how it's done, but I would feel kind of lame. Although at the same time, again, like the thing that I'm bumping against is like Sauron, the method actor. I'm like, it is weird that he was like so committed to just like fucking off, which like maybe that's because he will live forever and he's like, yeah, eventually I'll figure this out. But like for now, yeah, whatever. Adar is going to do his shit. And then I'll figure out how to do this unseen world power. And then I'll come back and I'll make everything right. I'll put the world in order, you know, in his evil way.
But maybe he like told Gil-galad to put Galadriel out there on the boat specifically so that she would not go to the west.
Bro, John, you're becoming a flat earther. Jesus Christ. Like that is so many levels.
Look,
but if that's
man,
the way the
when
show
you're talking
goes,
about television writers, you got to be willing to examine the really, really stupid option.
Yeah. That's true. I would be disappointed if that happened.
I'm already.
But there was that secret council that none of us were allowed to, so maybe that was with
Elf Lords only, bro.
Yeah, Elf Lords only, and Sauron and our boy.
Yeah, it feels a little like a CW, like a Once Upon a Time kind of thing. When you got really like they're so good looking, the two of them, and they turn this Sauron like this fucking giant ugly eye that is like badass and fantasy cool shit. Now it's like, oh, they got a little will they, won't they thing going on with Galadriel. I'm like, oh, that's cute. It's like a television show for teenagers. Didn't like it. Eldon and Elrond and Durin had a storyline.
I prefer the show where all the sexual tension is between blood relatives.
Yeah. And they actually fuck. It's not just implied that they might like each other from a distance.
They were pretty good looking on that show, too. They are pretty good looking on that show, I guess. It doesn't feel like CW, though. I don't know. There's something about it. Don't like it. That's what it is. So Elrond and Durin had a storyline this season. I think he wanted the dwarves. What are they called?
Yeah, the dwarves.
The dwarves. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know these things. They wanted all the bearded little funny guys to help him, and then they didn't. And his dad didn't want to help him, and then they did help him at the end, right? Or then he left. He left his dad behind, or what happened? What happened with that? I watched it once. What happened in that storyline?
Fair enough. I like how he's giving us a hard time about barely remembering House of the Dragon. He's over here. He's like, there are things that happened. There were short people. There were shorter people.
So,
there
like, they're
hairy
mining
people.
for I remember. No, the Balrog is down there where they're
Yeah.
mining for things, and his dad was very upset for helping him. And then he left, or did his dad like respect that he stuck to his guns? Or
Oh, his dad
No.
de-princed him.
Yeah.
His dad was
Okay.
like, "You're not the Prince of Khazad-dûm anymore because
Okay.
you didn't listen to me and you kept digging for Mithril, and there's a Balrog down there."
Well, I mean, he de-princes him because when Durin is trying to argue for like why they should help the elves, he says that Elrond is as much a brother to me as if he'd been fired in my own mother's womb. You know, like he was talking about how strong the connection is. But the dwarf king still doesn't like elves, and so he gets triggered at the insinuation that an elf would come from his wife, who's dead.
Because elves suck.
You know, yeah, exactly. And so that was the thing that pushed him over the line. You know, like the rest of it was like, yeah, this is frustrating. I don't think we should do this. I'm gonna punish you. But as soon as Durin like really stuck to like caring for Elrond and wanting to help his friend, he took it too far for the dad and hit that emotional nerve, and so he de-princed him.
So he defied his father, and now he's going to
Yeah.
help Elrond in season 2, or he did already help him. He dealt
Well,
him with the
He
rings.
gave Elrond that little bit of Mithril that the Elrond and the elves are going to use to make the rings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first 3 rings. We got more rings to make.
Right. Presumably, there will
Yeah.
be a season 2 arc where they somehow get more Mithril to make rings for the dwarves and humans.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's what happened in that storyline.
Expect that's where it's going. Well, yeah. I mean, that is what happened in that storyline. You watched a friendship get rekindled. You know, you watched like these power dynamics play. You know, both Elrond and Durin, like, you know, were trying to help each other and be friends, but they were also there for like other purposes because of the, you know, the hierarchical structures and all of that stuff, and the mistrust between all of these races because of, you know, time and racism.
And
there's a
because
lot of
they're all
racism.
liars.
Oh, that too. There's a lot of racism in the show, and I did find that to be one of the more interesting things about it. Is how would racism be like in a universe where you don't have you have more complications than the differences we have here. You know, you have people with 20 years. Some people are other things. I don't know. I immediately forgot other creatures in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, it was way better than Bright.
The Queen Regent of Numenor she wasn't going to help, and then she did help, right? That was the story.
Yeah,
she wasn't going to help because the Numenorians had like altered their society over time to be anti-elf, but her dad had become king and was like, "Oh, I had a vision through the Palantir that we should be better with friends with the elves again."
Well, we got to go back to the old ways.
Right. And then the people were like, no, fuck you. And so they had to unseat her dad and put her in charge. And so she didn't want to because she had the direct example of a king that did work with the elves being unseated and basically imprisoned to kind of warn her off from working with the elves. But then Galadriel and Halbrand and what's Isildur's dad's name?
Elendil.
Elendil.
Yeah, Elendil. Yeah, something like that.
Whatever his name is, the sea captain guy.
Yeah, exactly.
They convinced her that actually it would be super good for not just Numenor, but all of man to go to Middle-earth and stop the orcs from building a homeland for the orcs where they could all.
I mean, kind of like they were gonna kick Galadriel out because she snuck up to the tower room, and her and Muriel like finally like connected over like that stuff. Like Galadriel's on this quest, and she still thinks poorly of everyone because she's thousands of years old and thinks they're all children and babies, and she has to kill Sauron.
And Muriel,
yeah, and Muriel is like, look, I kind of believe you. I also know all this stuff. The Palantir showed me a vision of Numenor being destroyed. But it starts with you arriving, so we're kicking you out, so we don't have to deal with that. And then as they're sending Galadriel away, the white tree starts raining leaves, which, like, in their belief and also potentially real, is the Valar, like the gods, crying. So she like sees like the magic of the world be like, this is wrong. So it's like it, you know, again, it's like we're in this age where like magic is like beginning to fade, but it's still kind of there. The Valar are still connected to this world, and so like this symbolic thing of the tree shedding leaves for the first time in probably hundreds of years is like, oh, we're making the wrong decision. We're going to go help our fellow man in the Southlands. You know, like we're going to be as good as like the heroes of old that are carved in all of these walls. You know, so we get that nice speech. But then we also learn from the one dude's dad, who's like the beardy dude, the head union guy who's got all the guild crests. He's in it because he wants to exploit the Southlands for trade. He's like, can you imagine, you know, how good we're going to be for Numenor if we reinstate this king? He's going to owe us for all this stuff. So like trade routes, new land, access to far off resources. So, you know, you get these mixing like incentives. You get like the spiritual magic incentive for why Numenor should help the rest of the world, you know, not fall to darkness. But you also get this like somewhat cynical power grab for like, yeah, we're going to now be stronger than the elves because we'll have these two kingdoms and the trade, you know, and we'll be men against the elves. Like I'm not doing this to help the elves. I'm doing this to subvert the elves. So it's like an interesting, still racist power dynamic going on there with these sort of like ancient beings that have been around forever and distrust men or think men are good if they literally serve them. If they're loyal to the elves, that's what makes them good, which is, you know,
they take the job that nobody else wants.
Yeah. So, like, again, like it was doing the show. I want to watch it again because, like, there's a lot of little things going on. But it's like there's all of this stuff going on while also in the world where magic still kind of exists, where language is influenced by the material conditions of each group's society, you know, where, you know, maybe the orcs for this little time with this, you know, elf corrupted by Morgoth into an Uruk who, like, all of these orcs are offspring in some way from him, you know, was like, fuck off, Sauron. You're literally murdering my children, treating them as slaves. And then they're the ones that, you know, turn Mordor into Mordor. But now Sauron's going to come back, and like, what's going to happen with this? You know, was that part of Sauron's plan with Adar, or did Adar really try to kill Sauron because he was, you know, obsessed with finding this magic to literally control reality so that he could have it under the type of order that he wants? Like, he doesn't want freedom. He wants control over Middle Earth, you know? And I thought it was a little bit interesting that the show was like implying that like Sauron was trying to heal Middle Earth by bringing it under this like order, capital O order. But
that's what tyrants always say.
Yeah, exactly. But so, you know, it'll be interesting to see how that continues to play out. And I thought that was effective in like hit the reveal scene where Galadriel and him are like going through dreams where he's like, look, you're the one that said my past didn't matter. I'm trying to save Middle Earth. Like those are the parts of that I really enjoyed, where I'm like, oh, this slaps. But the parts of it where I'm confused and I'm wondering if maybe this was a later change is like how committed he is to just not doing anything. I'm like, that feels weird for Sauron. You know what I mean? Like, if this is your ultimate goal to like create some weird ultimate cosmic power to like force the world into the order that you want, which also looks like Mount Doom, you know, and scary and dark and shit, then like, why were you just on a boat in the middle of the ocean with some randos after getting stabbed by an Uruk?
Because it was this Machiavellian plot to link up with Galadriel so that Galadriel would convince the
that
Numenorians to give him an army.
Any sense? Because it like there's nothing to suggest that, John, in the text other than like you tried to outsmart a stupid television writer. Like John's like, I can be smarter than dumb people, so I'm gonna guess what dumb people are gonna do.
I'm trying to be stupider than the stupidest thing that I would make.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, John, Alex mentioned the creation of Mordor. Was that a big oh shit moment for you?
I mean, I think I kind of saw it coming a little early on because on the maps where the Southlands are is where Mordor is in Lord of the Rings, and it's got that mountain line, that like ridge line. So I kind of figured that was going to happen eventually. I wasn't sure it was going to happen at the end of the first season. But it makes sense that it would happen then.
I wasn't surprised that area became Mordor. I was surprised at like the mechanics of how they did it. Like this, like using this like structure that like Sauron built. He's like, yeah, I've got a plan. We got to make this tunnel so we can get the water to go straight to the lava, so it will cause this never-ending like volcano to just continue to go. Like we're gonna use not magic but like brute force to get Mount Doom to explode and then be perpetually going. We'll build this dam, we'll create these tunnels, and like we're there as this is going on. And like that whole bit where the water rushes through and then it explodes and the shockwave overtakes the town and then the smoke cloud, I was like, bro, this slaps. I'm for it. I'm on board. Cool. Yeah. And like the title cards, like they've seen KGF confirmed. Like there's no doubt in my mind where it says the Southlands and then it like fades and Mordor comes in. I was like, ooh, baby. That's some Indian cinema shit right there. My fucking guys. I really want to put it with like that music. I was like, it just, it's so good.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, the yawn was not on purpose, but that was perfect timing. God, yeah. We talked about the orc designs as well, or you mentioned the orcs, Alex. One thing I'm trying to focus on things that I liked. The orcs designs were awesome in the show. Yeah. It was great.
I thought like pretty much everything in the show looked really good. Like I enjoyed like Arendir's, like the sort of outpost elves. The fact that their armor was very like. Felt like grown, like natural. Like you could see that could potentially lead to like the elves of Lothlorien, the wood elves more than like the Rivendell elves and their sort of high society. So or the Numenorians having a armor style that was like a mix of what will become Gondorian and Rohirrim armor. Like they were horse and big military. So it's like they had the long ponytail things that the Rohirrim would have when they were on their horse back, but they also had like this sort of more Gondorian like chest plate. So it's sort of like you see where the other cultures will evolve from. Like we're still
you see the echo where it's all gonna go.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
That's good shit, John.
Yeah, but Tolkien's a better writer than R.R. Martin, so.
Tolkien didn't write this one.
No, yeah. I know. But Lord of the Rings is way better than Game of Thrones. And it's only 3 books.
We're not having that discussion. We're having the show is better, and I think that it's very my position is very strong.
I believe it.
John, did Sauron get his sword back at the end of the show, or is it just still with the little kid, or where that happened?
No,
it's with Waldrig.
Adar gave it to Waldrig, the pub, the tavern, the human that owned the tavern that was loyal to Morgoth.
Yeah. There's Theo the kid, and then there's Waldreg the old dude, who's like, do you remember Sauron? Have you ever heard of Sauron?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I do remember that scene.
Yeah. So he took the sword and he fed his blood to it in order to turn it into the key that was used to unlock the dam that fed the water into the volcano.
Oh, okay. So that's what that was for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why it needed to be a sword, except that swords are cool.
That's what it was, right? It was Sauron's sword, or his.
Yeah, and I think it was an early attempt at the magic that's going to create the rings, because of the way it came out. Their tools couldn't destroy it. Like, this is sort of one of the first attempts at something that's of Sauron trying to make something of the unseen world. Was this key to this dam?
Sauron is the key to all this. Any other characters that we haven't really talked about? I'm not going to say it. What's her name again? The mom. We haven't talked about her or her kid, or we talked a little bit about Nori, talked a little bit about Arendir, but is there anything else character-wise that we haven't touched on?
I really like that, like, Galadriel, like, her arc, she doesn't, like, realize how obsessed she's been and how, like, brutal she's really been with, like, the rest of the people until she sees Theo as a kid becoming her. Like, getting obsessed with, like, vengeance and this quest, this never-ending thing. Like, she has to tell Theo. She has to tell a kid, like, yeah, I've killed lots of orcs, but it darkens the heart to call those acts good, and, all of these things. So we watch her be, like, abrasive to people, obsessed, not trusting anyone else's judgment for a whole season. And then it's when she finally has to, like, just care for a kid, which, like, changes the rules because like, well, oh, you're a child, you're 14, of course you shouldn't have to deal with this darkness, you know.
Yeah.
Like that's the time where she's essentially telling Theo what other people have been telling her for probably thousands of years at this point, that like, and like it finally connects to her. And then, you know, she's able to see that later as she goes on, as she's, you know, moved on a bit, become a slightly better person, that like she's helped enable this. And then, you know, the wild shit of when she realizes that she helped bring Sauron back, she like does the classic thing. She doubles down, but she makes sure there's 3 rings. She's like, yeah, let's still create an ultimate weapon because now that I know he's for sure real, I'm still going to try to kill him probably.
We'll just make 3 of them because odd numbers.
Yeah. 1 will corrupt, 2 will divide, but 3 there will be balance. And then I love that she says, and this is a power for only the elves. And it's like, oh, you haven't learned your lesson yet. Yeah. I mean, we also know how it's going to go. It's going to go poorly for everyone because like you shouldn't be doing this. But yeah, it was good. I was like, oh, well, we still got several to make for the dwarves and even more to make for the dude bros of men. It's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, you don't need to use the silver bullet, but if you forge one, we don't have to depend upon the kindness of monsters. Final verdict on the 2 shows, Alex. What are you gonna watch first? Set it up that way.
I mean, I'm gonna probably watch Rings of Power more than I'd ever watch House of the Dragon. I might rewatch House of the Dragon when the next season comes out, like if we're talking about it, or if you know, it's culturally relevant like it has been. I mean, but again, like that, like I don't think House of the Dragon is bad. I'm being a little flippant, but I enjoy the Tolkien world more than I enjoy the Game of Thrones world. You know, just based off, you know, how I grew up, and I like the optimism more than I like the dour, everything is bad, we can't be friends ever, you know, we're gonna have to fight, you know, even though they like flirt with like, oh, they've missed an opportunity to be optimistic and nice to each other, it's like, I don't know, the world sucks and I don't want to watch a fantasy world that sucks right now as much as I want to watch, you know, Largo Brandyfoot inspire all the hobbits, you know, and even Melva Meadowgrass like come in and do it, and then, you know, Sadik goes with them, and then they go help their friend, the stranger, because it's the right thing to do. It's just the right thing to do. Whereas Game of Thrones is like, there's no right thing to do. There's only the quest for power, or you're fucking dead and you're a loser. Where it's like that's cool, it's compelling, but like it's boring. It's old to me. I would rather like actually try and believe in something, even if it's a story and we know that it's fictitious. You know, that's where I'm at right now.
John, final verdict: Rings of Power, House of the Dragon. Which will you revisit first?
You know, I like them both for different reasons. They both have very different tones, but they're both very well made. I think all the actors and all the cinematography, all the score for both is really good. There's a lot of visual setup and payoff in both series. For me personally, I have the same problem with them that I have with all TV show that isn't yet finished airing, and that's that I'm not comfortable deciding whether or not I like it until it's done.
Yeah.
Because I've been in many experiences where I've said, oh, this thing is really sick and awesome before it was finished, and then by the time it finished, it had gotten bad. But that's just the thing that I say for everything. Yeah. I feel like I say that every time we have a live stream.
Finally, and this may be one of my hottest takes, but streaming is bad actually. Back when Netflix was founded in 1997, no one knew what it would become. No one expected this little DVD mailing service would go on to become a streaming giant and kill Blockbuster Video, essentially ending video stores as we know it. Call me an old man, but there was something cool about going to the video store, browsing DVDs, maybe picking up some popcorn while you're there, and getting an evening out of your movie-going experience. That's a level of investment you just don't get when you're mindlessly scrolling. I mean, you've already devoted a huge portion of your evening to renting this thing, so you're way more likely to actually give it an honest shot and watch it all the way through. You just can't say the same about a movie on a streaming service that you clicked on a whim. It's a shame those days are behind us, but now the latest casualty of streaming has become physical media altogether. I'm sure many of you have seen the news of several titles being pulled from HBO Max following the recent merger of Warner Bros. Discovery. An American Pickle, Aquaman, King of Atlantis, Moonshot, The Not Too Late Show, to name a few. Several of these were HBO Max originals, meaning they could only be found on the streaming service. Now, if you're a fan of these titles, what's there to do? Other than sailing the high seas, of course. Back in my day, if you liked a show, you waited until the season finished, then bought the entire season on DVD. I know a couple of these were available on Blu-ray, but what about the ones that weren't? It seems unfair to fans and creators that all this hard work is just erased from existence. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. The streaming model comes with a huge price tag for consumers. Instead of buying the show once, now we're paying over and over again to watch shows like Seinfeld on a monthly basis. I know it's annoying to have to pay $50 for a Blu-ray box set, but to me that's better than paying over $100 a year to watch a show you don't even own. In today's media landscape, buying the box set seems to be the only way to ensure that you can actually keep watching your favorite shows. I guess it just comes down to a fundamental difference of ideology I have with studios today. I think of movies and television as art, something you value and want to have on display in your home. They see it as content, something to keep you distracted before you move on to the next thing and never think of it ever again. Is that the kind of future you want to support? Okay, that's our show. I'd like to send a special thank you to John Lein and Alex McKellar for joining me this week. Go watch the Star Wars video. It's on the channel now. I've been Sam Carrico. I'll see you next week.